Welcome, everyone. What a fabulous summit that we've had over the last month. Uh, Today's going to be a very special day. It's really more of a day where we're going to ask you to participate and you to join in. So I just want to start off by, greeting and thanking all the people that have attended so far, our fabulous speakers, our really good moderators. We've had over 700 people registered for the event from 37 countries. And it's just so impressive that we have such a wonderful participation and this wonderful energy and this wonderful compassion that we all have for our peers and loved ones. So I quickly just want to say that today is going to be a little bit different. Instead of having a panel of people, we're going to have breakout rooms where people can discuss first geographically what's going, how to do these things in their communities, and then topically on areas of interest. And if you join a room and don't feel like this was the right room or there's not enough people, come back to the main room and ask us to help you find the right room. We'd be happy to do it. So do so. I want to say that today's session is being recorded. So please, if you feel uncomfortable having your camera on, please keep it off and change your name if you don't want your name to be reflected. Today's chat can also be saved by anyone. So just so you know, if you have private conversations or conversations in chat and want to save it, today's chat can be saved by you and you don't have to ask anyone for it. I believe you do that by clicking on the three little dots next to the chat area. I just also want to say that, I lost my notes, I'm sorry. If you would like to use the CC function, it should be enabled. You can click on the CC button, which is near at the bottom near the reactions button, and you can open up a little box where it will give you the entire transcript, or you could turn it on and have subtitles. And those should be saved as well, just so you know. Finally, I want to say that this has been a very successful month. We've raised over $14,000 of our $15,000 goal. Our goal is to get 15,000 by the end of today. So we're just going to ask one last time. If you can donate and love what we're doing, please consider donating one more time or donating to the cause. We're so very close to our goal, but that's not to say that you have to stop donating at the end of today. Please continue to be a part of and continue to work with this community. There's going to be lots of ongoing supports. There was a question on how to donate. If you go to our website, there should be somewhere on the website a place to donate. You might have to register again for the conference, but I'm not 100% positive. I know that there's somewhere on our website for people to donate.
Maybe somebody could put it in the chat.
Yes, please. Please feel free to use the chat for conversations. There's going to be a lot of chances to talk, but some people do better with chat. So feel free to use the chat as frequently as you can. And I'm going to pass the torch over to Jen and let her speak. Thank you.
Oh, hello everyone. It's really good to be with you today. So as you can see, my name's Jen Killian and I'm part of the Soteria network in the UK. So I'm here today because it's been a real pleasure to be part of this, what feels like a really special movement. And it feels like, as Ty said, we're really going places. We've covered such a lot of wonderful ground already. Some of the speakers have said things that I think will stay with us forever. And just to remind people that we will be able to look at some of the discussions and record them, and then later on they'll be available on our website. So that means in the future, if you're wanting to get a group together and talk about what's important, you might be able to use it, or to convince other people to come along and fund you. So there's all sorts of possibilities for the future. So as Ty said, today is different. This is your chance to let us know more about what you need from this summit now, today, and in the future. Don't feel you've got to say everything today, because as discussions take place, that will spark new thoughts and new ideas in your mind. So there'll still be chance to interact with us via email and in future meetings. And we're really, really keen to let you know we are determined to continue with this. And we've already set up another date for our next meeting. So if you want to get this in your diaries now, we're already going to be setting up another Zoom meeting like this on the 5th of December, same time, same Zoom link. So you can be assured there will be chance to come back and continue any of the wonderful conversations we're going to be having today. So from today, this is a chance to let us know what kind of things you'd like from us, chance to get to know each other better in the discussion groups that Ty's told you about, to start it perhaps in the geographical groups, to begin to develop networks or further develop them if you've already got them going, and to help us plan how we're going to continue with our mission, and what we can do to help you and what you can do to help us, because many of you might have skills that will really bring a lot to what we've already got. So what I think it's worth saying that sometimes today in the groups and in the chat, we might be having difficult conversations. Today we're hoping that if we really all try and really listen to each other and begin to understand different perspectives, then we'll be well on our way to being able to bring other people in on board and help them understand more about how to work together, and more importantly, we'll be beginning to get on the road to know what we need to be able to set up a safe space. But before I do that, before I introduce our facilitators for today, I'd just like Judine to be able to put up the names of our sponsors. It's really important we acknowledge those. Thank you. So we've been supported by lots of wonderful organisations: Rethinking Psychiatry, Mind Freedom, National Empowerment Centre. So it's big thanks for their generous support. Intentional Peer Support, in honour of Sherry Mead, who established the world's first fully peer-run respite. We've been supported by New York Association of Psychiatric Rehabilitation Services, Montana's Peer Network, Resist, the International Society for Psychological and Social Approaches to Psychosis, the International Society for Ethical Psychology and Psychiatry, the Copeland Centre for Wellness and Recovery, National Association of State Mental Health Programme Directors, Emotional CPR, People USA, Al Galvez. Have I finished? Thank you very much. Really important. And many of you, I know many of you have contributed, and as Ty said, it would be great if any of you that would like to continue to support us do that. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Grace, Sylvia and Cindy Fisher are going to be facilitating today and helping us stay with each other. Thank you.
Grace, you're muted.
Rookie mistake there. Thank you so much. Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Ty. Thank you to all the amazing, wonderful colleagues that across the world who have helped bring this together. My name's Grace Sylvia. I've been working with Rethinking Psychiatry for the last 10 years. And my partner in crime for all of that, in addition to many other wonderful people, is Cindy Fisher, who I hope will pop into the screen. You saw her earlier. Before we get going, the planning group wanted to highlight two themes from the chat. As Ty said, the chat's been a vibrant place of discussion for the last 4 meetings, and we hope it's going to continue. And I realized I wanted to talk right now, especially to my people, those of us who identify as, and the way I say it for myself, I use the phrase that I had a time of cracking open. I also like the term mad. In the chat, there's been a vibrant conversation about what terms feel good to each of us, what terms we don't like, and why. And with several other kinds of concepts, there's been wonderful discussion about that. I wanted to bring in the wisdom from intentional peer support about holding multiple truths and honoring each other and being curious about each other's worldviews. So in this question of what you want to be called and what you don't want to be called, and maybe more importantly, who gets to do the calling, we recognize together, and it's being brought up more and more, that language is important. And it's not just important because it's just an empty word. It's important because there's power embedded in language. And where there's power can be abused. And especially when there's a power difference. And so when I think about during my time of cracking open, what did I want of the therapist that I was working with? And what did I expect from her? And I was very fortunate that I had somebody who was deeply curious about my experience and honored the way I spoke of it. What I would not have wanted was to be labeled mentally ill, for instance, and that would have taken down, that wouldn't just be a label, that also would have carried with it a framework of understanding. So if that would have happened, what I would have wanted would have been able to say, stop. And I want you to listen to me. I want you not just to use my words as window dressing, but to really work to understand my experience, even if you don't yet, and to believe that I know my experience more than you do. That brings us to another theme that we wanted to bring up, also from the chat. So likewise, being a mad person isn't the only part of my identity. I have many parts. I'm also a white-skinned person and come from a middle-class background, and I'm part of the queer community, and I'm a Jew, and I speak English as my native language in a country where that's the dominant language. This is where intersectionality comes in. And if anybody remembers the name of that theorist who coined that term, I'd appreciate it if you put it in the chat. I really like to give credits where it's due. So in our community, in this precious infant of a community that we're co-creating together, that we're going to be nurturing into the future, this precious community that's part of a larger radical mental health community, there are times that my identities, other parts of my identities other than being mad, come up against other people's identities in power difference ways. So in ways that I'm part of a power over group or a dominant status group, like when as a white person, if a person of color, a BIPOC person, a Black, Indigenous person of color, and other person of color says, ouch, that hurts, or hey, Grace, I can't believe you said that. That's really racist. I can guarantee you that my first reaction is going to be defensive. And I will probably flush with bright red shame. What I hope and what I've been practicing for my next reaction to be is to say, thank you for letting me know. And maybe I don't understand this yet, but I will do everything I can to understand and to work on it. And if you want to tell me more, I'd appreciate that. If you don't, that's okay. I'll turn to other people who I think understand this better than I do. And I will read and watch people speak. The reason this is coming, the reason we're bringing this up is that there were things in the chat over the last 4 weeks that some people of color found hurtful, some trans folk found hurtful. I'm sure there are other ways that we have been hurtful to people without knowing it. What I want you to know is that the interaction, the relationship doesn't end there. That I'm also a person who's a social worker and a therapist. And what I know from studying attachment theory is that nobody gets it right all the time. It's not possible. But when we miss the other person, we have a chance to do a repair. And when we do the repair, when we say, thank you for letting me know, I'm going to try to understand this better, or, oh yeah, I can see that and I'm so sorry and thanks for letting me know. The repair actually often makes the relationship stronger. People tend to trust more when there's been a breach followed by a repair than when nothing has ever gone wrong at all and it stays more superficial. So for anybody who's worried, like, oh no, was it something I said? Or who's like, I can't stand this. This is so frustrating. This again. Please know that this is actually an invitation and an opportunity. And we hope that you'll join us in this courageous work that we'll do together, supporting each other. So with that, I want us all to take a breath, or maybe more than one. And I want to let you know that this is the day that I've been waiting for, that I feel like is the culmination of the entire summit. That this is a chance. We'll have 2 opportunities to meet for half an hour each in small groups. One, you'll get to meet geographically by a region. The next one, you'll get to meet by topic. In between there will be 2 talks by people who've been in the work for years and years who are going to talk heartfully to us as people starting out or wherever we are on the path. We'll have a 15-minute break. I think there might be a poll or a survey or something in there. Would really like you to fill it out. We'll come back, we'll do the second group. We'll do brief feedback from each group, and we'll tell you how that's going to work. And then we'll wrap it up and then tell you what we've got going forward. So if that's exciting to you, like it is to me, like it is to all of us in the planning group, get ready. We are going to start with meeting in geographical areas. And you're going to have to bear with us because we're all going to be figuring it out together, and we're probably going to have to do some combining of groups. And if there's you go to a group and nobody's there, or it's only two of you and you'd rather be in the main group or with a different group, just leave the group and come back to the main group and we'll figure it out together. Judine, our magical behind the scenes person will help you. I will say, please be very careful. There's going to be, if you're in the small group, the breakout group, you will see a red button that says leave the meeting and a blue button that says maybe leave the breakout room. Do not press the red button. Only press the blue button. And it's difficult because the red button comes up on top. Sometimes you have to look towards the bottom for the blue button. But if you press the red button, it takes you completely out of it. It closes you out of the whole summit. But it's actually not that terrible. Just go find your link, come back in, we'll bring you back in. But to save a few steps there, just press the blue button instead. And if you find yourself going to the red button, pull yourself back. Also, if you are not able to figure out where the breakout rooms are, for most people on a computer screen, it'll be below. You might have to move your cursor around and the icons at the bottom will kind of appear, and you'll just press on the one that says breakout room or see the icon or press the more button, and then they'll pop up and you can join whichever one you want. If you can't do that, if that's hard or it's not showing up for you, again, our magical Judine will get you where you need to go. So with that, we are going to introduce the breakout rooms. It's a place where you can introduce yourself, say where you are. Yeah.
I just want to, because I'm sure people are wondering why I'm on the screen, and I just want to first of all, I just want to say something really quick, and it's like, I am so ecstatic. This is a moment not only in the last 5 weeks, but this is a moment in time and in herstory and history and we story that I've been dreaming and visioning and working and praying and crying for. And so I just want to thank all of you for all the time that you've been here, whether it's today or all 5 weeks. I called Grace this morning after a crisis of sort and told her, Grace, I can't do the opening with you together. You've got to do it. And I called her like about 15 minutes before she was to go on. So I really appreciate her taking that and in such a short time, and everything that she said, I am critically supporting, thinking it's so valuable. I had to do a repair this morning from something that happened last night. So how do we be with each other? I think it's very important to remember that repair is a critical part, because we're never going to get it all right all the time with anybody, even in the best of intentions. So I'll talk with you later. I'm going to let Grace go ahead and do the intros. Love you all so, so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. We've been working together for 10 years now.
Long time, long time. Yeah.
So here's your chance to find people who are near you. And just to remind you, there are people who've come to the summit other weeks from your area who aren't going to be here today. There are people who've signed up but haven't been able to make it. So this is a smaller group than it's been the other days. You might be in small groups, but hopefully you can start figuring out who you are. You have a chance to introduce yourself, to say where you are physically, to say what your dream is. Is it for a Peer Respite? Is it Soteria House? Is it something else? Are you already working on it? You'll have a chance to say how you want to participate, how much time you have. Yes, I'm ready to go. I could give let's do a meeting a week. Let's start with a FIA manual and work through what they say, or the Soteria thing, or something else. Or I'm great gathering other people, finding other people to join us, or I'm really good talking to legislators and I'll teach you how, or whatever it is. You tell your group members what you can share, what you bring to the table. And then also, do you want to share contact information? How will you do that? One way might be to do it in the chat, to put your name, your contact information. Make sure that people who can't access the chat, maybe they're calling in, maybe they're on a phone and they can't switch back and forth, make sure they have a way to put their information in if you use it, and then make sure you save it, because we won't have access to your individual chats. And it should work to save this time. If you have any problems at all, there'll be a button that says, "We need help." And one of us will come and pop into your group. And so without further ado, hover over, find your breakout room icon or your more icon. The breakout room should pop up, and find where you want to go. And remember, if you can't figure out how to do it, it's okay. Just stay and we'll get you into the right place. We'll have half an hour for this. Hey, everybody. I want to welcome everybody back. I hope that was exciting. What I'd love is if one person from each group put something in the chat about which group you were in, how many folks about there were, and anything that you want to share with us, with all of us. So if everybody could take a moment to do that. And I'm even going to give us a pause here so that you're not missing anything, and everybody can make sure from each group to do that.
Grace, if people want to share their email addresses, you don't have to share it with everybody. You can actually go into the chat and pick an individual to give your email address to, and that doesn't get shared to the whole group.
So welcome back, everyone. We'd like to ask you all to mute, please.
Hello, there's somebody who has, yeah, there we go. That's great. So, whoops. So maybe hosts can look in the participant list and do it.
Yeah, Grace. Yeah.
Thank you. And what I want to do next is invite Sarah Davidow from the Wildflower Collective, formerly the Western Massachusetts Recovery Learning Community, who was one of the founders of the AFIA Peer Respite. She's been at this for a long time, and we are so excited that you are here, Sarah. So Sarah's going to talk for 15 minutes, and if I can see, let's see. Let's bring you back on. There you are. And you're spotlighted. Take it
Hi,
away.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Grace. I'm going to share my screen, so just give me a second here. I know that, lots of talking heads coming at you can be a lot. And so I wanted to have some visuals. I usually prefer to speak that way. So hopefully you'll find this helpful. I think nothing I'm going to say right now is going to be, if you've been participating from beginning to end with this, some earth-shattering new thing, but I hope that it will reinforce a lot of what you all have already been talking about. Like Grace said, I'm a part of the Wildflower Alliance, which used to be known as the Western Mass Recovery Learning Community, and within our community we hold AFIA Peer Respite, which has been around since 2012. And so I'm going to just speak in general about peer respite and why this is a good moment for change, why there's real momentum here building that I think everyone can grab a hold of and move forward and make some of these things happen in your areas. So just to recap, I think you probably all spent a lot of time talking about the power of loss of power and how much that impacts so many of us, and that's how that is underneath all of why we're having this conversation. And unfortunately, we live in a society, at least the US and many of the other countries that I've been with are connected with people, and where we're harmed, we come to these points of distress due to childhood trauma and so many other things, and then we enter these systems for support, but those systems actually replicate the harm. And I'd love to share this slide because I think it's really powerful. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but I just kind of wanted to start here with the reality of how many times we are in experience of childhood trauma, and then the system that exists replicates that trauma. And I'll pull out one quick example around compliance. You'll see childhood message comply or it will get worse, and system message comply or it'll get worse. I think of non-compliance as really violent language. As a survivor of childhood sexual, physical, or emotional abuse, the people who hurt me the worst said, if you don't do what you're told, you're bad. And then I got into a system that immediately started telling me, if you don't do what you're told, you're bad. And so this is where we're coming from. And I don't think that's a surprise to any of us, but I still think sometimes seeing this written out like this, and I'm sure there's many others that we could add, is a really powerful reminder of what we're trying to move toward or move away from. And as far as what we're trying to move toward, this is a great moment to be moving because we have all this support. We've got the United Nations saying, we need to stop talking about chemical imbalances and start talking about power imbalances. You see Daniel Pierce appears special rapporteur, former special rapporteur for the United Nations, and that powerful report that he put out there that we've referred to many, many times. And then the World Health Organization just recently put out this report highlighting so many of the supports across the world that are coming from these much more person-centered, human rights-based approaches. And actually, AFIA is in the section on mental health crisis services. So you've got a peer respite that's in there. That's so powerful to be able to point to with legislators. I mean, honestly, I could pick apart concerns I have with some of the services they highlighted and all that. But in the end, if you're trying to get something in with a funder, if you're trying to create buy-in, the reality that it exists in this book and you can point to it. And in fact, that picture you see on the cover that they used for the mental health crisis services section is a picture I took with some of the people that were working in our peer respite. So there's a lot of good in there. And I will just say briefly, I keep hearing person-centered approaches, and I hope that when you are talking to your legislators, to your community about getting these supports going, that maybe we move away from some of the conventional perspectives on person-centered, because so often I hear person-centered being about how can we get this person to buy into the existing system? How can we get to them to the table? And I think Peer Respite and Soteria and so many of the other alternatives are about how do we crush the tables, or how do we walk away from the tables that exist, not how do we drag more people to them, and how do we build new tables together? And I think that's what Peer Respite and Soteria and so many of these things have grown out of. And so, so much of the message in those documents and so much of the message I want you to take away from all of this work, and I think that a lot of you are already holding, is that, we need to move toward supporting each person to take power back and make meaning within the context of their own lives. It is a profound loss of power to exist in a system that tells you what they believe is wrong with you and what you need to do about it. And these supports are about taking so much of that back. And we also, when we talk about power, power doesn't have to be inherently bad. It's so much about it is stop using power over people and start using power under people to lift people up. And for me, that's what Peer Respite is all about. How do we use our voices, the power, the privilege that we hold to lift people up, to lift our communities up? And I am going to refer to Jim Gottstein's transformation triangle here as a really good tool to keep your energy moving. I know Jim's in here somewhere. I saw your name, Jim, in there somewhere. So I use the transformation triangle often. And so the transformation triangle talks about, to make real systems change, you need to impact public attitudes, creating other choices, and strategic litigation, which, since I'm not a lawyer, I often also look at in some different ways than an attorney might. But you'll see on the left here, just have some examples of some of the Peer Respite, some of the images of Peer Respite houses. Afia's up in the right-hand corner there, but you've also got one of the Wisconsin houses, one of the Georgia houses, one of the California houses, etc. And I want to say, though, Peer Respite doesn't have to be a house. If you are feeling limited in getting Peer Respite started in your area because you don't think you can get a whole house together, it doesn't need to be that. It can be an apartment, and it can even be a mobile, or it could be a hotel. One of the second Peer Respite to start in Massachusetts started in a hotel before they could get a house. So try not to think about these things in really rigid ways. Figure out what needs to be present in order to hold the integrity of what you're trying to accomplish, but be flexible with the other pieces to try and get things going and build momentum. Now, to continue on with that transformation triangle piece, I know there's a lot of words in your screen. I am going to give you the link to get this so you don't have to absorb all of this now, but I wanted to take that transformation triangle idea a little bit further and give you some sense of what that can look like in each area as you're trying to get a Peer Respite started or better supported in your area. So public attitudes. That can look like just sharing articles. I just gave one example of one of them that recently came out that really is in a more mainstream publication and lifts up the idea of the successes of Peer Respite. Having film screenings, trying to get them into your local public library or on even public access TV. I know not a ton of people believe that other people watch public access TV, but you'd be surprised how many people that you wouldn't otherwise reach will just be turning on, passing by, and notice things if you put it out there in some of these places. Explore change agent strategies. So I gave you a link in there to a worksheet that we use often that encourages you not to just try and go out there and scream about the change you want, but figure out what will appeal to the people who hold the power. What kinds of arguments should you be making? Really help walk you through thinking through some of those things. Writing letters to the editor, making your own media. I don't want to belabor this, and I know I'm only supposed to be taking 15 minutes. So as far as strategic litigation, I can't emphasize enough how useful it can be to get to know your legislators before you have something to argue for. Just having those relationships there so that when the opportunities show up to actually try and encourage them to sign off on something or help you promote something or create new legislation, the relationships are already there. It's also really hard in my area, and I think across this country and in other areas, to track when the legislative speaking opportunities will be. So coming up in your community with a way to track who's looking at the website, taking turns looking for the legislative hearings, and showing up to any legislative hearing that could create an opening to talk about Peer Respite or any of the other changes that you're trying to make is really, really key. So I'm just gonna, you can see what else is there for yourself. But under other choices, obviously this is the place where we're saying create the Soteria, create the Peer Respite, create the anything, create the living room. But as a part of that process, you just want to make sure you are figuring out what are the pieces of each of those supports that make them what they are. So often we're hearing things get called a living room or called a Peer Respite, and they're doing things that are much more conventional within the system. So if you're going to invest the energy in creating these alternatives, invest the energy to make sure that they actually represent and don't add to the corruption or co-optation of these supports that are out there. It's so hard to reel things back it is so important that as much as possible they get started on the right foot. So I hope that this chart just gives you a sense of, what are some of the things you could be doing when you're thinking about how do you actually move something forward? How do you actually make the change? But I also just wanted to offer you a couple of minutes of other voices. So I'm just going to make sure my sound is shared here. And I'm going to play just a 2-minute clip of our Peer Respite video, which we always put out there. Anyone who ever wants to hold a film screening on Peer Respite to help create buy-in, we encourage you to use ours. But I specifically wanted to just have some of the people from that film talk to you today about why these changes are important. Hopefully, if you're not already excited, help get you excited. So I'm gonna please start that.
It's a really important part of the healing experience to become a part of a non-judgmental, fully accepting community.
The best way I've been able to recover, I guess, is people around me that just let me be who I am and kind of experience what I'm going through and are reflective in that process so I don't get trapped.
For me, the biggest thing is respect. I think that's key in a space like that, is to feel respected, is to be able to get respect, give respect. I think that that leads to be able to feel comfortable and really be able to relate with each other in a different kind of way. Right? That we're all there for different reasons, or able to respect our differences and still come together and assist each other in healing. And that's what was great about AFIA specifically.
They knew I was facing forced commitment, and but somehow they weren't, freaked out about that, and they didn't need to know, every chart written on me and my, 20-year history of in and out of things. And I really felt like it was someone relating to me as a fellow human being going through a hard time.
Hopefully that communicated a little bit of what I wanted to communicate too. I'm assuming a lot of knowledge in this room at this point, both because I know there's people in here who've already been doing this work and because I know a lot of you have been here across many presentations over these Sundays. In fact, some of you might have recognized Cindy at the end there, who I know spoke in at least one of these sessions with you. So I'm assuming a lot of knowledge that you're filling in the gaps here, but hopefully this is just a reminder of why we need these supports, how they impact people, and some of the ways that you can start moving. And I really do believe you can make this happen in your area. It's not always easy, and sometimes there's so much of a skew towards all the conventional clinical supports that already have all their roots, but people are looking for change right now. This pandemic has been so painful, so awful, but there's a lot of things happening at once, and a lot of demand for change is a part of it. And in fact, the pandemic has been a part of that in, this kind of painful way, and sometimes a deeply painful way. But people have discovered through the pandemic that, for example, where they thought for people who are struggling with problems with substances, oh, you know, we could never pack someone's methadone doses for weeks at a time. Suddenly with the pandemic, well, we can't see you, so we're going to pack all your doses. And they're realizing that when they pack people's doses, not only could they survive that, but they could also get better jobs because they didn't have to have their entire life revolving every single day around needing to get their dose. That's just one example. So there's so much that's coming together right now that is making space and making people a little more receptive to this idea that change can happen. So I hope you'll take advantage of that. This last slide I have here has a link to the book that I was a part of writing on Peer Respite. Gives you a lot of tools. Also has the link to email us if you want more, and the link to this presentation, all the slides that were in it. So thank you all for having me here, and I'll stick around for a little while, but this is what I'm going to offer.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And I just want to let people know that the full video is, I am trying, Judine, I might need a little help because my computer isn't responding very much right now. The full video is about, what, 25 minutes, and it is, we have it linked to our YouTube channel so that people can find it with all the other good stuff that we have, the manual and everything linked there, and it's fabulous. If you haven't seen the full video, y'all, it's fabulous. Thank you so much. We will now hear from Susan Musante, and she will give her 15 minutes on peer respite. And I am also, maybe somebody else can spotlight Susan. Give us a moment, folks. Take a minute to breathe. There we go. And unmute.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, we hear you now.
Okay, sorry, it wasn't allowing me to unmute, and I'm a little bit challenged because I'm outside in a campground and I can barely see my screen, so I could hardly find the chat room. So I apologize for that, but I'm glad to be here and with all of you. In the spirit, so I was the original director for Soteria, Alaska, and also the first full-time director for Choices, which was a peer-run organization as well in Anchorage, Alaska. So in the spirit of, sorry, I am totally challenged today. Okay, so in the spirit of acknowledging our Indigenous people that we have been doing by practice in these meetings, I want to acknowledge that 2 days ago, or day before yesterday, I guess it was, or yesterday, I'm traveling and I was able to drive through the beautiful lands of the Navajo Nation, the Ute, and the Zia nations. So that I'm benefiting from some of the beautiful lands here in the Southwest. I also want to, in the spirit of acknowledgement, acknowledge the ladies, I call them the ladies of Canaan B, which was the state hospital in Connecticut, where I was able to get a job when I was right out of college. I was having trouble finding work. We were in a recession, and I went to work in the state hospital. Within really the first day of being there, I realized at that time how easy it was to get committed. Husbands could commit their wives, and I remember a woman was committed who didn't speak English, and we had no translators. And the good doctors decided that she was cured after putting her on medication, and her husband came to pick her up, and he brought her right back and said, she's not cured, she has to stay. So it was easy to be committed. But what I learned is that there was an amazing group of people who were being forced into this unit, who I related to more to them than to the people who were getting paid to be there. And they taught me so much. But what I did say at that time is, if I ever have an opportunity to do something else, because I had no idea, I never heard of Soteria House, even though it was probably in the process of being open. I said, if I ever have the opportunity to do something else, I'm going to do it. But I didn't fathom that there really was anything else. And then fast forward to 2006, and I got a series of emails from Psych Rights. I got an email forwarded from a friend of mine who said, Susan, this is something for you, I think. Take a look at this. And they were looking for an executive director of a Soteria House in Alaska. And I said, yeah, this sounds great, but guess what? It's in Alaska, and I was in New Mexico. And an hour later, I got another one forwarded, same thing from another person. And when the third one came through, I thought, well, maybe I should look into this. And then I was very privileged to be able to work with Jim Gottstein and their board of directors, and Aaron Wolf, and also many people to help develop Soteria Alaska. What Jim forgot to tell me when he got me there was that we only had funding for 6 months to write a business plan. So I was highly motivated to work toward helping to get funding. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we did that. But before I do that, I'm assuming, as Sarah did, that a lot of you have been on these, or that you've already been running Soterias, the indoor peer respites. But just in case you're not aware, Soteria houses are a alternative to hospitalization. The model was developed in the 70s with Dr. Lauren Mosher, Voice Hendricks, who I think is on here today, and has inspired us, and Alma Men, and a whole host of others. But it was an alternative to hospitalization for people who were newly diagnosed with schizophrenia, or had what most people would call psychosis. A lot of us call them alternate states, some journeys for people. The language is, I try to use as much inclusive language as possible, but also following what Sarah was talking about, it's important for us to help the public who don't know about these things understand. And so sometimes I'll use language I think they'll understand, even if it's not language I personally like to use. But then I try and translate it for them when I can. So I did go to Alaska. We did write a business plan. I'm glad to share that with anybody who wants to start up Soteria houses. We went with a mixed funding approach, and which included, but it was contingent on getting state funding. And we didn't have it was contingent on getting a large chunk of funding, I guess is what I'd say. And one of the things we were pursuing was state funding. And we did that through legislative advocacy. And I consider that advocacy, Sarah pointed to this, that you don't just go to the office and make the ask. You get to know your legislators, you meet with them, you sit with them, you try and find out what is important to them. But we were getting a lot of resistance because people don't really understand Soteria houses. And finally, we met a senator, and we were telling him about the house, and he totally related. And that's how it's done. He said, I have a neighbor whose wife has been on high medication for a long time. She's lost her personality. I wish I could have offered this to her. and he became our champion. I want to talk, so we had 3 champions really, 2 senators and 1 legislator. And I considered it a miracle that we got funded, because we actually got in the state budget, we actually got a line item that said Soteria House, which is amazing, because usually, and the Division of Behavioral Health was not very happy about this, because they didn't really know what a Soteria House was, but it went into their budget and they were like, what is this? So then we had to really work with those folks. But I want to say that there's something happening right now. The times are changing, because we had lots of resistance in the beginning, but the times are changing and there's a real buzz going on. And I was in a meeting not too long yesterday, the day before yesterday, with Chaku Matai. I don't know if some of you will know Chaku Matai. And he was saying that peer support and alternatives like Soteria houses and peer respites and other types of alternatives to the conventional system are, they're not just a service. They are impetus for social change. They are the part of the transformation triangle. I was going to speak to that myself, Sarah. I'm glad you did. The Jim Gottstein's transformation triangle is to develop alternatives. So we have to show people what these things are. So that was really important to me. So the buzz is happening, and the buzz is happening largely because of the people around the world who've been participating in this summit, that really Grace began by just calling people up and say, let's get together, let's do this. And that's how it's done. I went to Mexico a number of years ago, and I was in Barrancas del Cobre, which is the Copper Canyon. It's quite a beautiful place, and there's indigenous people there called the Tarahumara people. And they happen to be long distance runners. So they run 100 miles at a clip. Sometimes they run between villages and deliver messages. Sometimes they run just for the fun of it, for sport. But they can run 100, and it's at high elevation, they run 100 miles. And if you ask them, how do you run 100 miles? I used to think I was a long distance runner because I could run 17 miles. But if you ask them, which I did, how do you run 100 miles? I couldn't fathom it. And they say, you put one foot in front of the other. You put one foot in the front of the other. And when Judine asked me to do this little talk today, all I thought about was, how can I help people know how to do this? How they do it is you put one foot in front of the other. You just move forward, and you do not vary from your purpose or your mission. And so those are my words to you all. Put one foot in front of the other. I am happy to assist anybody who's interested, because I'm very interested in helping to develop more of peer respites and Soteria. Soteria is my area of expertise, not necessarily peer respite. But I think the timing is right now and much better than when we were trying to do it. But every step of the way, just when I thought we had hit a barrier and we wouldn't be able to go forward, someone popped up, and then we put one foot in front of the other and seized the moment. I want to close with one final story. One other thing I want to say is, I believe that programs like these do close for a variety of reasons. I know we've talked about that a bit. And usually it's not just one reason. There's usually like cracks that start to happen. But the one thing that I know for sure that that makes a program not sustainable is if the leadership and the people participating in it lose their vision, lose their purpose, forget their roots. So always remember your roots, I guess, is what I would say. Finally, I spoke about the ladies of Canaan B, and I'd like to speak about a graduate of our program, and this is why this is so important, a graduate of the Soteria program who called me up one night at 10 a.m. She was already moved out. And she said, I know I'm not supposed to call you on your cell phone at night, but, and of course I immediately went to the place of, oh, something's wrong. She's calling me at 10. And she said, but I felt I needed to tell you this. She said, I'm sitting in my own apartment, in my own bath, having a bubble bath, and enjoying my life. And that is because of Soteria House. And this was someone who was on a very, very serious, not good trajectory. Abused by the system and family. So, or I'm not even sure where I am in time because I can't see my clock.
It's perfect time. You have like 2 minutes to wrap up.
Well, are we taking questions or not?
Whatever you want to do with your 2 minutes.
Does anybody have any questions or comments you want to share?
For either Sarah or Susan.
Well, I can share one more story. We had a young lady who came to stay at Soteria House, and she, when she was leaving, I asked her, I was asking her about her experience and what she thought about Soteria, and she said, I knew from the minute I walked in the door, this place was different. She said, I said, how did you know? I mean, other than the fact that it's a house and not a hospital, but how did you know? She said, I fully expected there to be like the nursing station at the front door with the glass that, that they would only slide open on when they needed to pass something to you. And she said, and I walked in the door and there was a coat rack for my coat and a place to put my shoes, and then walk in and there was a welcoming kitchen and living room. And so just that factor alone makes Soteria different. I think it's also what makes Peer Respite different from a conventional system. That's my wrap.
Thank you so much. So, Kathy, I'm sorry, we are at the time where we are going to take a break, and we're going to have 15 minutes with more of Stan's fabulous playlist, which your reminder email today has a link of all of his Spotify favorites that he's been playing. We will see you at 1:45, and we'll continue with the next breakout room and all the things we'll do to wrap up for today. So we're halfway through. We hope to see you back in about 15 minutes. And Kathy, if you have something you need, you might put it in the chat and we'll talk to you there. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Susan.
because talking about a change. More than just air pollution. Well, you know, you got to clean your brain. The only way that we can stand in fact is when you get your foot off our back. I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know, change has gotta come. Ooh, yes it is. It's been too hard living, and I'm afraid to die. I don't know what's up there beyond the clouds. It's been a long time coming. I know, change has gotta come. Oh, yes it is now. There's a time I will go to my brother. I've asked my brother, will you help me please? He turned me down. And then I asked my dear mother, I said, mother, I'm down on my knees. It's been a time. Somehow I thought I was still labor. I carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know. My dear mother, oh now. I said, mother, I'm down on my knees. But there was a time that I long, long distance, long, sometimes I thought I was still able to try to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know things gotta go. It's been so long, it's been too long, the change gotta go.
Leon, discover her debut album, I Thought All These Things.
So Spotify is going to share some commercials with us, and I'm just going to take a moment to address you myself. It's Stan here talking to you from Winnipeg in Canada. Music's going to be back in just a moment. I'd like to maybe just mention it's really difficult to pick from these rooms that we have set up, and we want to be in a few of them. So I understand these choices. It's just like concurrent sessions at a conference. Say you want to be in 3 of them, and we can't clone ourselves. So pick one that's closest to your heart, please. You know, if you're in the process of starting or wanting to or dreaming about starting, number 1's going to be for you. Some of us just want to help others, but aren't necessarily want to be directly involved in starting something up. So that's number 2. Advocacy for peer respites. And this is the one that I'll be facilitating. Advocacy is so important, and it occurs on so many different levels. If advocacy and activism is something close to your heart, number 3 is for you. We're going to be using social media, and we need people who can understand that. We need you in number 4. Fundraising is another one that probably not too many people want to get involved in. And lastly, we have applying these principles in our own work, which I think all of us can do. And let me see, because I think we're going to go back to the music. It's a brand new day from Miriam Makeba.
Stan, before we go back to the music,
Ty, what is it?
I just wanted to say we're going to do our best to record these sessions. So if there's multiple sessions that you want to be a part of, but you're unable to join, we will try and do our best to record these sessions and put them on our YouTube and our webpage. So I can't promise. I know the session that I will be in will be recorded, and we've made arrangements to record other ones. So just wanted to let people know that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ty. Here is Miriam Makeba.
Then all the dark clouds roll away, and the sun begins to shine. I see my freedom from across the way, and it comes right in on time. When it shines so bright, and it gives so much light, and it comes right from the sky above, makes me feel so free, makes me feel like me, yeah. And it lights my it seems like, and it feels like, and it seems like, oh yes, it feels like, well, a brand new day. A brand new day. Yeah. Oh yeah. I was lost, double crushed, with my hands behind my back. I was lost, I'm hurt, I'm thrown in the dirt, shoved down on a railroad track. I've been used, abused, and so confused, and I didn't have nowhere to run. But I stood and looked, and my eyes got hooked on the beautiful morning sun.
The bells, it still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in.
And we're back. I would recommend maybe that everybody switch their view to gallery view and we can see each other. I'd just like to make a comment. You know, we talked about all these differences among us. When I look at my screen here, I see 25 human beings in front of me. That's all I see. I don't see all those differences. I just see fellow human beings really engaged with each other and being together because we're passionate about this stuff that we're doing. Thank you.
So before we began to go over the topical work circles, I think, Ty, you had something you wanted to share?
Thank you, Cindy. I have two things. Quickly, a lot of people have been having difficulty with chat and a lot of people have missed part of the conversation. If you can send me a private message with your email, I will do my best to get my chat that has been edited, all the private messages and emails out. So I'm not sharing things that I shouldn't be sharing, and I'll try and get that chat to you. And then for big news is we've reached our $15,000 donation. So yay! I just wanted to thank everyone. You know, it was our goal. We're going to continue to do work, but I just wanted to thank everyone for being supportive and helpful and getting us to our goal. It's really impressive to get $15,000 in a little over a month. So I just wanted to say yay and congratulations. So thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, and a big, big shout out to Lawrence Spiro, I believe it is Spiro, who really stepped in and spearheaded this campaign. So so much gratitude to her and to all of you that made this happen. That's a good omen. We reached our goal in less than, I think it's been about 6-7 weeks. And so all of us, may we reach our goals of creating these compassionate alternatives to help us all heal. So this is the moment where you're going to pick, and this is just the beginning. It's not the end all or anything, so don't worry if you don't get to all 6 groups today. You're not expected to, of course. So here are the work circles that we have choices of, but before I go into the choices, just want to remind you about the red button and the blue button. The red button will take you completely out of Zoom. So don't hit it unless you're trying to leave the whole workshop. The blue button will take you out of a workshop or whatever you're in. If you just want to go back to the main room, the blue button is the button to push. The red button ejects you, so to speak. And then you can always come back in if you just enter back into Zoom in the waiting room, and you'll get let back in. Okay, so the purpose of the groups is to brainstorm ideas of what you would like to see from the summit going forward in the specific area that you are in. Possibly set up times for follow-up meetings. Someone please take notes, brief notes, but please take notes. And one or more folks will report back. So the person that takes notes might want to share them with someone else in the group to read them back. You might want to decide that, of course, at the very beginning. So group one, you would join this group if you wanted to start a peer respite or Soteria project and would like assistance or mentoring. You just heard a couple of folks talk about what mentoring, or that they would be willing to mentor, at least Susan did. And there are others out there that we can look to. Group two, I want to plan how to support others who want to set up peer respites or Soteria projects. Group three, I want to work with others for advocacy for peer respites and Soteria projects and alternatives to forced treatment. You heard Susan say that that's such a key part, is developing relationships and connecting with your folks in politics. 4, I want to help strategize how to use social media and networking to promote the work in establishing peer respites or Soteria projects. Those of you that have that golden thumb in the whole social media, we need that so desperately. So please, if that's your skill, sign up there, join that group. I want to plan fundraising for peer respite or Soteria projects, seeking partners, sponsors, government funding, however we can get that money flowing in. 6, I would like to continue to learn how to use the principles of peer respite or Soteria projects in my own life or work. And believe me, I've been using that even today as I work with supporting my son. Some of the things I've learned just in these 5 weeks have been incredibly helpful in what I'm doing today. Okay, so you hover your cursor over and click breakout room. You can do that now. If you don't see the words breakout room, maybe go to at the bottom of your screen, it says the word more. Click on that. And then you should see something that would say join, and you click on that. Different systems, computers, laptops, tablets have different wording, but if none of that works, after everyone else leaves, Judine, our heroine, will still be there, and she can manually put you where you want to go. Don't hit the red button. That's a stop. Hit that blue button. And class, you can go to your rooms. No, I don't want to say class because that's.
Hi, everyone. Before we start, I just want to let people know that I'm one of the people that's running this meeting, facilitating, and we've been asked to record this meeting, these breakout rooms, only these breakout rooms and not the other ones. So please, if you feel uncomfortable, turn off your camera, change your name. Otherwise, I hope people will feel comfortable and speak freely. Definitely, we want to be able to share the wealth and share the knowledge. So thank you.
Hi, folks. I'm Joey Gitzig in Texas.
Hi, I'm Diane Wickman in, where am I? Pittsburgh.
Hello, I'm Caroline. I'm from Nottingham in England.
I have a question for you, but I guess, is anyone else here to get introduced?
Yeah, and I'm Anne. I'm in Florida, Tampa, Florida. Hi.
Kathy Laws in Pennsylvania.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ty Smith. I live in Denver, Colorado in the USA.
And I'm from Toronto over here.
Hi, Susan Musante here from Alaska, but currently sitting in the Southwest. And Ty, are you recording?
I am, yes.
Okay, great. Okay.
And I let people know before you join that I'm recording, so if they don't feel comfortable, please turn off your videos and change your names.
Okay, and one last thing I want to say, Ty, if I get knocked off because I'm kind of in a weird place right now, you're in charge. Nobody's in charge. We're all in charge.
Yeah, that makes me feel a lot better. Thank you.
We're all in charge. Certainly not me.
We're a community.
Yeah. Cindy Fisher, Vancouver, Washington, USA.
Fred from Cornwall, England.
Where in England? Cornwall. Got it.
Oliver from Pennsylvania.
Are you in part?
Lancaster.
Oh, okay.
Karen from the UK, but I would actually like to start one in France.
I'm Vicky from Connecticut.
Hi, I'm Amy from Victoria in British Columbia, Canada.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Clever from Rwanda.
Has everybody introduced themselves?
From Germany. I see in the chat, Deirdre says, not sure if you can see this in the group, but I cannot turn on my microphone here. Sorry, my name is Deirdre and I am in Aloha, Oregon. And also there is Clover from Rwanda.
What a wonderful group we have.
Very, very diverse and international. I'm excited. So today, we are here to talk about how to implement soterias and respites. And I guess I would just say, I'm curious, how to move forward. Obviously, we're not going to solve that problem in one day, but to move forward with kind of the idea of the summit was to kind of be an incubator, and that this would not end in the sense that, we had a lot of good interaction and talking, but I think a lot of people like myself are interested in some action. How can we make some of these things happen? So I guess anybody, and I think, are we supposed to get a note taker? Is that what they said at the end there, Cindy?
Yes. Yes.
So is there anybody who would like to take a note? Because are we going to do a report back at the end?
Yes.
Okay. Is there someone who would like to do that?
I would like to, but I'm thinking of going to various rooms just to be difficult. Sorry about
that. I would appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm the same. I would, between room 1 and 2. I'd like to start one, and I've got a location in mind, but I kind of fall in between the two, 1 and 2. the 2 rooms.
Tell me again where you are.
I'm in the UK.
That's what I thought. Okay.
But I'd like to be involved in the running of it rather than starting it myself. But I'd like to start somewhere in France, and I've got a location in mind. So, but I don't want to be the driver behind it, but I'm happy to get involved.
What's the location, if I can ask, that you have in mind?
We're in France, fairly central, really, in the Charente.
Charente, okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's been quite a few people on the summit. The problem is there's a lot of people who want to start a centre, but we're all dotted around the world, aren't we? And it's such a huge project to get off the ground. And
how would you address language?
It. What's that? Sorry?
How would you address the language issue? Would it be for, I mean, would it have to be for French speakers?
I want to interrupt for a minute, just for a second, because we need to get a note taker, and then all these questions are really important, but I would like to let Susan guide this, and then you folks can, you know, connect as it is inside that. Is there a note taker? I can try. I have trouble with my handwriting, so I will turn off the mic.
I can try taking notes.
I can too. I mean, I'm happy to type. I'm typing as it is, but sometimes I miss things, like don't understand things or miss things. If there's somebody else who would want to fill in, you know.
So I think that's great. I just heard at least 2 people. So, and then when we get to report out, we'll just make sure that everybody who took some notes, I can try and take some notes as well, but I'm, as I said, I'm
also, Susan, I think it, you know, when in the report out, if there's something really critical that people feel like it was missed, they can just add that in. So it's, you don't have to get it all. Just thank you for doing it.
Okay.
All right, Susan, back to you.
We might have lost Susan because she's in a remote area. I see that there's some questions. Before we get into the questions, though, I just want to kind of, you know, the purpose of this room, from my understanding, is talking about how we can help people with the next steps, you know, providing mentoringship, how we can help people really find ways to develop these areas in wherever they want to develop it. It's not necessarily talking about developing it, but how we can provide those next steps. So I want to respect people's questions, and I want people to feel free to ask questions, but I also just want to have that purpose of, you know, how can we make this an ongoing support for everyone for years to come, to be able to come in and say, I want to start up a program like this, because there's not enough of these programs out in the world. And we want to create that supply. So thank you.
Thanks, Ty.
Could I just say hi to Donald? Hey, Donald, I'm back. Donald Ross.
I'm not sure I'm hearing.
Yes, yes.
I just want to let Donald know I'm back.
Oh, hi, Laura.
It's Laura. It's Laura. Sorry.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The question is, my question is, there's Peer Respites and there's Soteria, and there's a lot of similarities, but the structure is very different. So I think those of us who want to start a Peer Respite, there's different issues than those of us who want to start Soteria. So maybe going forward, we should, I think we've laid a good foundation philosophically, but that maybe going forward, we should maybe split into 2 groups. Which one of us are more focused on trying to get a Soteria-like place, and which one of us are more focused on doing short-term like Peer Respites?
Yeah, I think that would make sense to split the 2, because they are 2 very different, aren't they? Different approaches.
So what I think the similarities are shared values.
Yeah, there are similarities, but
no, the similarities
there's
are shared values. Yeah,
there's a lot of common elements like funding and things like that, and staffing. So there's a lot of common aspects. Yeah.
But their purposes, you are exactly correct in that the purposes are different. The purposes are different in the sense of, you know, who the one of the questions I always like to ask when I'm speaking or approaching a problem is like, who is the audience? And the audience of the Peer Respite is different than the audience of the Soteria, but there is very much shared. And in keeping with what Ty said, I do want to say that there's no way that I could have, we were a whole group of people doing it, could have got a Soteria in Alaska going. And I think this is probably true of respites as well. There's no way without some mentorship. And I had some really great mentorship. So just to reinforce what Ty was saying, that, you know, that's one of the things here. But so I think that actually advocating for funding and how to problem solve, for example, the not in my backyard syndrome, which happens in a lot of places. I don't know if that happens internationally. It certainly happens in the US. Those are common problems. We have shared values. I think we have shared fundraising activities, but the audience is different. So that's kind of how I see it, if that helps. But the suggestion, I think, is that going forward, that we actually have two distinct groups, one for Peer Respites and one for Soterias.
Yeah, I think the start really is contact, really. Is being able to connect with like-minded people in the same area.
We have a couple people with their hands up. Kathy had her hand up first. I don't know if it's relevant to what we're talking about, but I just want to acknowledge it.
Thanks, Ty. I also agree that I think going forward, it'd be helpful to have a stream for Peer Respite and Soteria. There's always places we could come together around the values and things, but the nuts and bolts, I think, will be different. I think even the funding streams can be different because, you know, there is that clinical oversight aspect of Soteria House that makes it maybe a little more amenable to public health funding in the US. I think we also need networking and connections beyond the mental health world. So for example, real estate expertise. How do you find a house? How do you navigate zoning laws? How do you overcome the not in my backyard, the NIMBY thing? I think those are things that people in the real estate world probably know a lot more about than those of us that are just in the mental health lived experience world.
I think this is really valuable to, you know, what the question is what sort of supports do we need to develop? So, you know, developing these different areas, we don't have much time, so I'll just shut up and pass it over to Kathy.
Thank you. So my question would be, we've been talking about Peer Respites and Soteria houses mainly, but we've been kind of planning of doing a community center here in Germany, where people can just exchange their experiences, or people who've been in the psychiatric system mainly. And we've been thinking about applying the values of the Peer Respite and Soteria model to kind of the context of what we wanted to do, where people can kind of get together and exchange their experiences, maybe do some yoga classes, and we've been thinking about self-funding it. So would that be something that also applies to us? Thank you.
I just want to summarize what I think I'm hearing. So first, I heard that we will need going forward for mentorship, not just folks who have been in this field, but architects and real estate people. And then what I just heard is how to use the approach in different settings. we're not necessarily in a house. And Sarah spoke to that a little bit. And I think that's a valuable thing to talk about, because to me, the important part is the being with and not doing to. So how do we take this approach into different settings? That's what I'm hearing.
I think also defining the difference between Peer Respite and Soteria House. Donald has his hand up.
And Ty, because there's only 5 minutes left, and I think Diane put something in the chat that said that she's had her hand up and it keeps going down. And so
because I'm typing.
Yeah,
My typing goes down.
So between Don and Diane, that'll probably be our last two. So if you both can be conscious of that, so you're sharing time.
I'll just be really quick, Diane, just to say that consulting, I have a friend who is a developer and a banker, and it's with him that I really developed the idea with regard to what is this going to cost in terms of operating budget and capital budget. And he was instrumental in helping me do that. He was also instrumental in determining exactly how many square foot per person we need and so forth. So I would really suggest, if you have any friends who are business-oriented bankers and real estate folks. In fact, he suggested that I buy up a motel because they're going fairly cheaply here in Washington. Anyway, that's all.
My comment is similar. When Kathy brought up, needing people outside the field. So in State College, where I used to live in central Pennsylvania, a long-term, what is it, LTSR, long-term something residence was set up in a community, and there was a lot of resistance, a lot of NIMBY. So the home was retrofitted, and the county worked a lot with us. Then there are, I guess, regulations as far as you were talking, Daniel, about Donald, about square footage and things like that. That might be a piece of the county requirements or the zoning. So all of that we got through already with our county and setting up a different kind of home. So, yeah.
Okay, so what I think I'm hearing for going forward is, if we're talking about mentors, we really need a cadre of mentors who know about citing the house, that put where it should be, and that's real estate, probably lawyers, bankers, and this group, I don't know if we have that many people, so that may be something we look forward to. Can we have a cadre of mentors who have the skill set that some of us don't have? I certainly don't.
And it would need to be from around the world, because it would be different for each country. So we really
actually, it's actually different by state and city and country. So it's complicated, but it's really important.
So I think the question was, should we plan to meet again, or should we, I think it's difficult now. Susan, how would we suggest? Do you think we'd move forward from here? We probably have 1 minute to decide that.
So I guess what I'm hearing, the big recommendation is that we look for different skill sets of mentors, and then this is too short to solve this issue. Sorry. So I personally think we should meet again, but I leave that to all of you, and we could meet separately. I think there's common issues and uncommon ones also, distinct. So
I wonder if we can have breakout rooms at the end of this again.
So I just want to.
People have been staying on for the chat, haven't they, for a couple of hours after?
Yes.
And I was wondered if we could have another breakout room rather than on a big general chat. I think that would be kind of beneficial.
I just want to let everyone know, if they hadn't seen, we have 15 minutes more. So there's more time if we need. And I would highly recommend that if you're not on the group email distribution for this, that you should contact the Peer Respite Soteria Summit email, so I'm not giving anyone else's email out without permission, and ask to join. And then we can use that to form up meetings for people. And I'll just put that email in chat for people.
So before we begin to go over the topical work circles, I think, Ty, you had something you wanted to share?
Thank you, Cindy. I have two things. Quickly, a lot of people have been having difficulty with chat, and a lot of people have missed part of the conversation. If you can send me a private message with your email, I will do my best to get my chat that has been edited, all the private messages and emails out. So I'm not sharing things that I shouldn't be sharing, and I'll try and get that chat to you. And then for big news is we've reached our $15,000 donation. So yay! I just wanted to thank everyone. You know, it was our goal. We're going to continue to do work, but I just wanted to thank everyone for being supportive and helpful and getting us to our goal. It's really impressive to get $15,000 in a little over a month. So I just wanted to say yay and congratulations. So thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, and a big, big shout out to Lawrence Spiro, I believe it is Spiro, who really stepped in and spearheaded this campaign. So so much gratitude to her and to all of you that made this happen. That's a good omen. We reached our goal in less than, I think it's been about 6-7 weeks. And so all of us, may we reach our goals of creating these compassionate alternatives to help us all heal. So this is the moment where you're going to pick, and this is just the beginning. It's not the end all or anything, so don't worry if you don't get to all 6 groups today. You're not expected to, of course. So here are the work circles that we have choices of, but before I go into the choices, just want to remind you about the red button and the blue button. The red button will take you completely out of Zoom. So don't hit it unless you're trying to leave the whole workshop. The blue button will take you out of a workshop or whatever you're in. If you just want to go back to the main room, the blue button is the button to push. The red button ejects you, so to speak. And then you can always come back in if you just enter back into Zoom in the waiting room and you'll get let back in. Okay, so the purpose of the groups is to brainstorm ideas of what you would like to see from the summit going forward in the specific area that you are in. Possibly set up times for follow-up meetings. Someone please take notes, brief notes, but please take notes. And one or more folks will report back. So the person that takes notes might want to share them with someone else in the group to read them back. You might want to decide that, of course, at the very beginning. So group 1, you would join this group if you wanted to start a peer respite or Soteria project and would like assistance or mentoring. You just heard a couple of folks talk about what mentoring, or that they would be willing to mentor, at least Susan did. And there are others out there that we can look to. Group 2, I want to plan how to support others who want to set up peer respites or Soteria projects. Group 3, I want to work with others for advocacy for peer respites and Soteria projects and alternatives to forced treatment. You heard Susan say that that's such a key part, is developing relationships and connecting with your folks in politics. 4, I want to help strategize how to use social media and networking to promote the work in establishing peer respites or Soteria projects. Those of you that have that golden thumb in the whole social media, we need that so desperately. So please, if that's your skill, sign up there, join that group. I want to plan fundraising for Peer Respite or Soteria projects, seeking partners, sponsors, government funding, however we can get that money flowing in. 6, I would like to continue to learn how to use the principles of Peer Respite or Soteria projects in my own life or work. And believe me, I've been using that even today as I work with supporting my son. Some of the things I've learned just in these 5 weeks have been incredibly helpful in what I'm doing today. Okay, so you hover your cursor over and click breakout room. You can do that now. If you don't see the words breakout room, maybe go to at the bottom of your screen, it says the word more. Click on that. And then you should see something that would say join, and you click on that. Different systems, computers, laptops, tablets have different wording, but if none of that works, after everyone else leaves, Judine, our heroine, will still be there, and she can manually put you where you want to go. Don't hit the red button. That's a stop. Hit that blue button. And class, you can go to your rooms. First of all, welcome back, everyone. We're really excited to hear what you have to share. And just so that every group will get a chance to share, we'll have right around 3 minutes each. So I'm not going to time it. I'm going to trust you to share deeply and concisely. So the group, why don't we just start backwards? So we can start with group 6. Was there folks in the group that wanted to use principles of Peer Respite or Soteria projects in their own life or work? Can we get a share back from that group, group 6?
Sure. Yeah, I was part of group 6, and actually someone else was going to take notes too. I did take some, but I didn't give her my email to send them to me. So I just want to throw out there that if I don't cover everything, please add. So we talked about how to use the principles of, Peer Respite, Soteria principles, kind of even. One of the things we talked about is how to even kind of like create, what's the brand name, or a way that we could talk about what's going on. And we talked about dialogic approaches is a term that I'm hearing in a lot of different circles in these more open frameworks versus the medical framework. We defined the principles by listening, or the important parts is listening, being person-centered, shared decisions, establishing an equal relationship, being with, whatever is going on makes sense in the context of the person's life, and they're doing the best they can within that moment with what they know. So using these principles in our daily life. So being in a peer support group can be helpful just to be practicing those principles ourselves, being able to tolerate uncertainty. Emotions are okay, they're a way of healing. Confidentiality offers freedom of expression. Being curious versus judgmental, empowering others, keeping things open. We're interested in what they're saying. And something that lastly, somebody was talking about, helping the person. So rather than pushing the person, which is kind of a colonial act, so instead helping the person open to their own resources. So I think that's it for me, unless someone else in group 6 had something to offer. Thank you.
I also was making notes, and I think the main thing that I noticed towards the end, that there were some recommendations like rethinkingpsychiatry.org, the phrase safety, support, and affirmation, and another one called another website called Surviving Antidepressants was also mentioned. And thank you, Pat, who covered it. You covered everything that I got written down.
All right, thank you so much. It's
could I add something to that group, Cindy?
If it's quick, because they just did the 3 minutes, so.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sure, yeah.
That's okay. Go ahead.
One of the things that I heard, and it's there in general, it's sort of this hanging over us, is this trance. We seem to have a trance of unworthiness, like we're not capable of listening and being with somebody, offering support, learning to empower that person as the providers. And I think it would be important if there were maybe a subgroup that where we would talk about how we can just open our own minds to be able to just, we don't have to help somebody. We just need to be with them and strong enough. We can do this. We have the, we're not stupid. We're not young. And certainly we have the courage to be with somebody when they're struggling. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. That's an important message. And just okay.
So don't send them to one of our support groups.
I'm not.
How we do our thing.
Grace, I'm not clear if that's someone that's commenting or.
Yes, this is Alfred. What are you saying?
You're muted, Alfred.
Alfred, did you want to say that again? We didn't hear you. You're muted.
Send them to one of our support groups and see how consumers help consumers. There are no professionals, only consumers. We help each other.
The mutual aid groups, peer support groups.
Yes, we help ourselves.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Super important.
But nobody helps us do it, and we're not trained.
Yeah, I'd like to get some training myself, actually.
So it sounds like part of the bringing that into our own lives, it also would be helpful to have more training and bring it into our own lives and bringing it into others. Is that close enough? And again, this isn't the end all and be all. We'll be able to continue and go deeper into these, but I want to make sure we hear from all the groups. So are we good so that we could continue on for now? I'm going to take silence as a yes. So fundraising group number 5, what are your takeaways that you want to share with us?
Well, I took minutes for that group. I actually put them into the chat box in anticipation that that's what you guys were going to request, but I'll just briefly go over them. We had a discussion about where funds should or maybe shouldn't come from, frustrations around renewing funds, the potential loss of funding, as well as the problems of maintaining fidelity of the model. when funders want to restrict the program. Talked about the importance of relationships and their significance in obtaining funds. And my favorite thing we talked about was, could we just avoid funding from people that might restrict the fidelity of the model by funding it similar to like a shelter, using a secondhand store, a bike shop, a craft store, something where people could contribute as they're able to contribute, and have it be more self-sufficient with funding. And if the funding could come from an internal business, where would the initial funding come from? Again, spoke about the importance of relationships with the community and education so that we could get the referrals that we needed and the trust from the community to make it function well. And that was kind of at the heart of our discussion. Did I leave anything out, team players? Thank you, Cindy.
All right, thank you, Teresa.
And Cindy, I just want to comment on the summary from last time. There was some important things in the chat that people were also saying, actually, we might need to learn to unlearn, to untrain. And I think what Alfred was saying, and Alfred, let me know if I'm wrong, but that maybe we don't need professionals and to be trained because we've been doing it for years with each other in our peer support groups. Did I get it, Alfred? Yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay. All right.
Can I just add into that and just say that training worries me a little bit. I think we've been really careful with training because in my experience, certainly sometimes in this country, people train and they don't have a clue. And I know services, I mean, I was talking to our crisis team the other night when I told him that I was too scared to complete suicide, but if I could, I'd do it right now because I would be afraid I would make a mess of it and it'd be even worse. He just said, well, it's a jolly good job, you're too frightening. So he just said, well, why do you want to talk to us? I said, well, I don't know. I said, I'm in a real mess. He said, well, what was the point of ringing us then? So I just said, oh, I'm wasting your time. And he's a trained nurse.
Yes.
And yet the Samaritans in this country who aren't trained, except basic trainings, they were really shocked. But they're ordinary members of the community who can just come alongside people where they're at and they don't suggest things and don't anything else. And in fact, one of my psychotherapists said one of the big problems is that staff have lost the art of just simply listening. They just think that they've got to try and fix things. They are unable just to sit and just be with somebody. They can't do it. And this is one of the biggest dangers, I think, with training, that we teach people that they almost need to fix things. So,
that's so true. And that's the core of what this is all about, being with instead of doing to. And if the training is about doing to, it's definitely not the training that's needed if there is training needed. So thank you. I can't see who was talking, but thank you for sharing that. And we're going to move on to group 4. Those who wanted to strategize on how to use social media and networking to promote the work. Group 4, the floor is yours.
Yes, ours was about social media strategizing and publicizing. We talked about the challenges of, not feeling like a social media expert, not to generalize on age, but for anyone who didn't grow up with social media and it's not familiar to, or if we're not, experts on all the algorithms and things like that, that can feel a bit intimidating. We also talked about the challenges that can happen with social media. We have to be vigilant about bullying and trolling, and even when there's no ill intent, there can also be There's a lot of misunderstandings that can happen on social media. I have been, I don't claim to be any kind of social media expert, but I have been an administrator on the Facebook page, Rethinking Psychiatry's Facebook page for years. And Facebook has its limitations. And as we said, every social media platform has its pros and cons. But one thing Facebook has been really helpful with is just publicizing our events and sharing a lot of links of like-minded organizations. And we also talked about the importance of knowing your audience as much as possible, about explaining why what we're doing is important and how helpful it can be. We talked about the importance of personal stories. Of course, only personal stories of people who want to share, who choose to share their stories, but definitely there's evidence with other groups. Like, I know, as I shared, like when I've studied a little bit about like the history of the LGBTQ rights movement, and there are healthcare, anything, personal stories are very important for swaying public opinion and for really inspiring people. So for people who choose to share their personal stories, that can be a huge help with social media campaigns. So yeah, it was a good discussion. We talked about just kind of the complexities of navigating social media, but how helpful it can be in some ways for getting our message out and for publicizing the work we're doing.
Thanks, Rachel. And are there those in your group that actually want to continue forward in supporting groups? Did that actually, was that one of your conclusions in that there are folks that want to actually do that, or they want to learn? Where did you close?
We talked a little bit about that, and anyone else from the group is welcome to weigh in. One of the members of our group already has a private Facebook group that is focused on nature-based peer support. Another member shared her blog with some personal stories. So anyone else from the group is welcome to weigh in, but it sounds like other members of the group have already started doing some work with social media, and we're certainly interested to learn more.
Okay, well, and we do need to move on, but that would be definitely something in the future to find out if there are folks that have the capacity to actually want to share with others what and how they're doing it, and maybe network together.
I wasn't a part of the group, but may I say something, because this is important to me?
Sure.
I just want to say, our community, more so than others, not everyone uses social media. I know a lot of people who are proud flip phone users and don't want to be connected. I myself am happily kicked off Facebook, and I'll never be a part of it again. And a lot of our communities out there. So whenever we have a talk about social media, we need to include the people that don't want to be on it. And so it's not enough to just say, this is how we outreach to people. We need to think about how we're reaching out to our community members who don't want to be a part of social media, because then they get left out and they get left behind, which isn't fair. Thank you.
Hi.
Very good point. Thanks.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Jana. I was a member of the group. Very quickly, we did address that, included in a discussion about the importance of using every tool we can manage, but acknowledging that some people do not engage in social media at all.
Yeah, very, very important point made. So thank you. Thank you all.
Also, this is Anne. We also said we should join the Rethinking Psychiatry Facebook group if we are able to, so we can help spread the message, share the posts they do, so others can get the events and things.
Please do that, because we will be keeping up to date what's happening with the summit on that, as well as the summit has its own website. So advocacy, work with others for advocacy for peer respites and projects and alternatives to forced treatment. Who are our advocacy folks?
Jim and I sort of facilitated that group. I think we found that there's a broad range of advocacy and activism that occurs at many different levels. Somebody, Tina, in fact, talked about the need to abolish psychiatry entirely. Jim was part of this. Jim presented a 3-minute illustration of how we might speak to a policymaker, a legislator. But Jim, maybe you took more notes than I did, and maybe you could share.
Well, just a few items. The comment that the general public and elected officials often marginalize people with disabilities or behavioral issues that end up placing them involuntarily in the medical model with forced treatment and medication, so forth. They need to be reminded that we're people too and deserve respect and attention, and listen to our points of view. The other item was to remember inclusion and diversity and culture in our advocacy, and not just BIPOC or people of color. And certainly there are language issues that also need to be considered in advocacy. And then another item is your own personal story is probably the most important part of your advocacy presentation. So that's what I had.
Thank you.
Tina has her hand up, was part of our group.
Go ahead, Tina.
Yeah, first I want to clarify, my point was not about abolishing psychiatry as such, although I would love for that to happen, but legally abolishing the system of involuntary commitment and involuntary treatment. I put a lot of stuff about that in the chat, including countries that are very close to doing that, particularly Colombia and Peru and Latin America, because of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. I also mentioned the Disability Integration Act in the US as a good way to frame a positive right to support that doesn't have to be met by psychiatry or the mental health system. And that for me, going forward, I really want to work with other people on a truly abolitionist agenda, not seeing it as an aspiration that's unreachable, but actually putting in some work to imagine it and work on it and make it happen. So that's what I hope some of us can do as part of this, because it's very closely related to the need for crisis support as in the ways that people have been discussing it throughout this summit.
Thank you, Tina. That sounds like that's an additional group that it sounds like you would be willing to take the lead on if there are others that are interested in that level of advocacy down that beautiful track, which I would love to see that move forward. At some point, I guess we can figure that out. How do we check in to see if there are people that are interested in that? I'm going to move on so we can get to our other groups. But again, this isn't the end all, this is the beginning. So there's a lot more for us to explore. Group 2, you want to support others who want to set up peer respite and Soteria projects. Tell us about your support goals.
Okay. Should I, I'll do it, and Jim, you could fill in what I missed. Okay. Those of us who work with other mental health nonprofits, that we bring this message to them in a big way, be a liaison. I'm with a liberal faith-based network, and I see a strong need for bringing this in as a way to change the medical model priority. Jim had mentioned some critical things that we need to set up nonprofits. We need to organize geographically, and a critical one was to maintain fidelity in whatever we do. People were depressed that program didn't last, but one comment was that it's an organic movement, and if one tries and fails, you try again and you fail better, and so it's moving things along. Okay, there are social media influencers I've never heard of, and one of our members shared 2 of them, and so it's connecting with them, and he could probably speak more to that. Narratives, sharing narratives in multiple ways, connecting with media allies. So that's just what I caught. But Jim, is there more?
Oh, I think you did great. I was just going to introduce you.
Okay, so that's incredible to have a group that's going to support those that are actually trying to start it. That's just like miracle stuff in my mind. I see that Louise has had her hand up. Louise, is this something that needs to be commented on something that's gone past, a separate comment, or can we go to group 1 and then come back to you?
No, do go to group 1 and then come back, because it's a comment on something that's gone past, so that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And so starting a Peer Respite or Soteria project, that group, I was a part of that group and we had a couple of note takers. So
I'll just jump in here. We had an awesome, very internationally diverse group, and we talked a lot about what kinds of mentors would we need going forward and how to proceed. And I want to go to the couple of note takers we had.
Do you want me to start? Okay, so the next steps in starting up homes, so mentoring. So we talked about the particulars regarding beginning, funding issues, buy-in of community municipalities, building social relationships, and buy-in of the funding sources, working with people outside the mental health field, so real estate professionals, architects, people who know about zoning, how to get past not in my backyard. And I suggested myself learning from the experience of those who have set them up, how they overcame the roadblocks, how they approached setting up houses, the zoning issues, the not in my backyard. Because there was a home set up, a long-term residence in where I used to live. The county got past all of that. And then to share an evidence base to create buy-in of funders and the community, overall buy-in. So share an evidence base to show cost effectiveness of having homes as contrasted with hospitalization and revolving door hospitalization, and overall to create the understanding that money up front pays off in the end, saves money in the end, so money talks. And then how to set up the home, and then also, okay, so first to set up the home, collaborating, conferring with others on an ongoing basis, to share information, ideas, and experiences, how to do this. And that was at the beginning and ongoing, sorry. And then we talked about commonalities and differences between Soteria House and Peer Respite centers. The main commonality being shared values, doing with and not doing to. And then main difference, Soteria not being a peer respite, not being peer run, and then Peer Respite being peer run or hybrid. of peer run, not peer run. And then the fact that there are variations to setting up houses, variations across states, even cities, and forget internationally. That is what I had, and I might have missed some things.
Anybody else from the group?
I just want to add that the AFIA does have the Peer Respite manual, which I think is a great one for understanding the different types, and then the step-by-step. And then there is the Soteria book itself that I think is probably the most powerful and informative book on Soteria. There's also a manual that was written. The one caveat that Rethinking has about that manual, and I'm not sure exactly, Stan put in the chat where you could find it, but it uses the Bern model. I believe that's in Germany, and that's what we would call a hybrid model, because it medication is a lot more at the it takes a priority in it that we don't feel is as close to the model of being with as we would like. But I guess it does have some good information.
So Cindy, just to clarify, that's in the WHO report.
Oh,
they were holding up the Bern model as the model of Soteria, and there's been some mission drift towards the more medical model with that. But there is what Terry had put in the chat was the original Soteria manual. Keith apparently reformatted into a more user-friendly way, and it's available. I don't know, Voice would be the one to tell, and maybe not for today, but I think that was, if I'm remembering right, that was kind of the aspirational manual, and I don't know if that was how it actually played out manual, but I think there'll be a lot of really good information in there.
Yeah, so if it's the one that, and it's also posted on, I could maybe put it in there. There was it's a big file, and that's I think what Keith was working on. But no, it was a report on the original Soteria House. So, and in fact, I think you'll recognize a lot of stuff that ended up in the book too in that. So I'm sorry for interrupting, but I wanted to make that clarification.
So I want to jump in. I think the Soteria Bible is the book written by Voice, so I'm looking at his face as I say this. Voice and Dr. Lauren Mosher, and contributed by, I think, Al Nonen and others. And it's Soteria Through Madness to Deliverance. To me, that was our Bible. And but you know, it's not 1970 anymore. So there's this is a fluid thing that has to move with the times and with the people, but not to ever lose the roots. And that's my mantra. Don't lose the roots.
Amen. I think that's a great closing. Just really quick, wanted to thank Keith for that contribution of reformatting that, because he just offered to do that a couple of days ago, and he did it. So thank you so much. And I think that's the closing for my part.
Oh, yes. Can I just add?
Oh, yes, Louise, I'm sorry.
Yes, it was actually going back to the lady who spoke about getting rid of coercive practices and stuff, which I thoroughly endorse. But the one thing I'm particularly interested in, of course, there are places in the world, and I'm thinking particularly of Norway, where they've got medication-free wards, and you have the right to go there. I think the other one is the Trieste model, which has done away with medication, psychiatric wards completely. It's all in the community. And I think what might be interesting about that is that it may not be necessary to get rid of psychiatry if you've got the option of medication-free wards and things, because that clearly is not coercive in that way. And the right to be able to choose to go there, if that's the route you want to go down, is to me a good option. Because I think one of the big problems with psychiatry generally is, you know, once you fall into them, you get drugs whether you like it or not. So how do these countries like Norway work that system where you have got medication-free wards and the right to go? And I think one of the problems we're running into in this country now is that statutory services are becoming a crisis sort of limited damage limitation service, because they only really want you now if you're at such crisis point that they need to detain you to go into hospital, which is why 95% of people in hospital now are detained, because they come in so late that it's too late. And what the value of these kind of services does is that it avoids that. It picks people up much, much earlier. And of course, open dialogue with Finland is, of course, the most wonderful example of where they've managed to do away with a lot of medication, but you can discuss it if you want to go down that route. Yep, great. But of course, open dialogue in Finland, of course, showed that you could turn services around by doing it very differently. So, yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. So much of what you say, I feel like we all are in agreement with, and there are also other pieces that I see people chatting about. These are discussions that we will need to continue with, go in more depth, hear each other, find out where it is that we can find common ground to move forward. Thank you all so much. I'm turning this back over to Grace or Ty or
Jen.
Jen. Okay.
Me and Jen. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So thank everyone for their contributions. Again, this is not the end. This is the beginning. Remember that.
That's exactly what I wanted to say, that this is the last day of the very fresh start of a new beginning. And today was an excellent day. We've had so much diversity. We've had so many voices. And it was a wonderful chance to speak. Please note that we will continue to leave the meeting open and give people an opportunity to chat and share for as long as we can, as long as we're able. I know some of us have to go and leave early. Some of us have big plans. The next meeting we're going to have is December 5th. If you're interested in that, please email, and I'll put this email in chat, the Peer Respite Soteria Summit at gmail.com email. Also, if you're interested in joining our community forum, there's a lot of ongoing conversation, a lot of chances to start up more groups, get expertise from our members, and really tap into other people's passions. So I just want to say again, I'm so happy to be a part of a community that values people's experience and is really pulling those things together. We have more things in common than we do differences, and that seems to be the driving force of this community. So thank you all for participating. Thank you all for being a part of this event, sharing your passion, helping getting these communities. As it was said in one of the very first days, you know, this should be like a firehouse in every community. We should have peer respite and or Soteria houses in every community, just like we do firehouses. So I don't remember who said that, but it was brought up today, and it's a very powerful thing to say. So I wanted to echo it again. Thank you all again, and I'll pass it over to Jen to wrap the rest up.
Oh, thanks so much, Ty. So just to remind everyone of what an international organisation we are, I think Ty might have mentioned right at the beginning that we've had people registered from 37 different countries. So I just quickly like to run through them just to remind you, they might not all be here today, but these are people that are countries represented from around the world. So we have Australia, Belgium, Brazil, Canada, Colombia, Croatia, Czech Republic, Denmark, France, Germany, Greece, Honduras, India, Ireland, Israel, Italy, Japan, Kenya, Lebanon, Mexico, Montenegro. I can't even read that one, sorry. Netherlands, New Zealand, Nicaragua, Nigeria, Norway, Philippines, Rwanda, South Africa, Scotland, Singapore, Spain, Switzerland, Trinidad and Tobago, the UK, and not forgetting the US. So it's amazing to think we've had people from so many different countries, and I'd just like to thank Grace and Cindy for helping us through today, for all the people who helped to facilitate the groups, and Ty, and all of you, because without you, we wouldn't exist. So really looking forward to seeing you again on the 5th of December. And if you didn't have a chance to have your say in the group today, or wish you'd gone to another group, we haven't got the 5th of December planned yet, but there'll be more chances to join more groups, have your say, and make things happen, more importantly. And hope some of you can stick around for a bit longer. And thanks again to everyone, including Judine. And without her, it would be here. So thank you, everyone.
Absolutely. And
The behind the scenes goddess.
Yes. And I just want to say that this whole summit began with a conversation that Grace found and discovered or refound Voice Hendricks and spent hours talking with him. And that was the beginning of the summit. And if I'm wrong, Grace, correct me, but that was the launch. She had a vision of a summit for a very long time. But so to acknowledge both Grace and Voice for the seed that planted and grew.
And it was Susan Musante who I said, you know, I just think we should do something to help people, like bring people together. People keep saying, this is so great, but how do we make one in our neighborhood? And Susan said, I've organized conferences before, we can do that. And so it was like all these, you know, meeting Voice and Voice being willing to start giving talks and meeting Susan, and then everybody who said, yes, yes, I'd like to be a part of that. And all of you. And for the last 4 weeks, after our 3-hour visit together for the official summit, many people stay after and continue the conversation, and we are willing to stay around again for a while. So if you want to keep talking, we can be in the unofficial part. And also, hopefully you got some people's email addresses and phone numbers and can maybe start meeting in your geographical groups or in your topic circles and start meeting and learning about each other and what your next steps might want to be. And then on December 5th, Sunday, again, same time, we'll come back together and we will let all of you know about that. Please make sure our emails aren't going into your spam.